It's a good thing we have the experts in the room. Roxanne Francis, she's a psychotherapist from Francis Psychotherapy. I'm really looking forward to learning from her.
And someone many of you already know, Dr. Andrew Blackwood, or as we call him, Coach Drew. He's a healing and communication consultant and a parenting coach. Yeah. So we're super excited to have them here today.
Well, welcome. Welcome to 700 Club Canada.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Me. Well, we're ready to learn, right, Bill?
I am ready. I'm a sponge.
Honestly, I just feel like there's just so many challenges for families and children, deep concerns for children's mental well-being. What's the most common mental health struggles that you see presenting themselves in children?
For me, that's an easy question to answer. It's anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, that is usually the core of most other kind of challenges, and even if you go to the extreme of being diagnosed from some sort of disorder, there's generally anxiety that's there.
That's so interesting that that's the core. The root behind other things is anxiety?
Why do you think that is?
Well, children generally, they have the need to feel secure. Right. They need a predictable environment. And in our society today, as we all can see, it's a very fast-paced, go, from one thing to the next. Sometimes children don't know if they're coming or going. And it can result in having this sense of them not knowing what's coming next and worrying about the next thing. And that's where the anxiety comes from.
Exactly.
Yes, so I'm curious then. So do you think that our culture is actually amplifying this problem in certain ways? And what would those be?
Well, you know, I want to backtrack just for a moment because what we were talking about uncertainty. And because a lot of people think uncertainty is the same as anxiety, but it's not. Uncertainty is the unknown, but anxiety is when you have a picture of the future that's negative. Anytime you picture something unpleasant in your future, it's like watching a horror movie about your life. What you see, you feel in your body. So when there is uncertainty, we tend to fill in the blanks, which leads to anxiety, right? So we're naturally designed to feel what we think with our imaginations. That's how God made us. But with all the uncertainty and no answers, we fill in the blanks with negative things. And that happens for anyone, but a lot for children, because they're so imaginative, right? They can imagine. I was driving to ballet with my second daughter, and she says, "Daddy, I'm feeling nervous." I said, "What are you feeling nervous about? What are you imagining?" And she says, "You know, what if they don't like me? What if I don't have any friends?" I was like, yeah, I could see why you would feel nervous if you were imagining that. But what if your teacher, she was really, really good, and she noticed that all the other kids were nervous, and she helped you to be friends? How would you feel then? And she's like, "I feel better. I feel so much better. Thanks, Daddy." Great. So that's how we're made, right? But a lot of people don't understand that, which is why we want to help parents, particularly to help them help their kids understand that, okay, this is what's happening for you.
Roxanne, do you think that, as Andrew, you were just talking about this image that you have, this idea and how kids absorb what they see, do you think the media is a factor in escalating then anxiety in kids?
100%, 100%. I think between the news and the TV shows that we watch and social media, there is a lot of comparison. There's a lot of negative news out there that children absorb, and it feeds into that worry, this concern, this idea that I can almost predict the future. I know what they're thinking, right? I know what is going to happen, especially if we're turning on the television or absorbing media and all we're seeing is this negativity. Then there's this idea that only negativity will happen in my future, or only a negative thing will arise. And so we have to be mindful to balance that with positive thought, or just as Andrew did so expertly with his daughter, right? Offer a potential positive solution, right? And when we say what if, there's usually a negative response. What if this thing, what if this bad thing happens, right? Sometimes we need to ask ourselves, what if a good thing happens? Right? To help to counteract some of that.
Well, I think that's a really profound thought because we know that fear sells, and that's what the
Right.
media. And so when you realize the only reason that that message is being promoted is because it's making money, you can expose it for what it is, bring it into the light. And I think that's really powerful, creating a potential future that's better. And I think maybe that's where faith comes into play as well.
100%, because that's what God wants for us.
Right.
You know, his vision for us, which we get to adopt, is a vision that is good, that is filled with wonderful things. And that's why he encourages us to think on these things. Whatsoever is good, lovely, of virtue, of good report. Think on these things, because when you think about it, you feel better instantly. In the moment, you feel better, and you get filled with faith, you get filled with hope, you get filled with courage. Otherwise, you get filled with anxiety and despair, despondency, and we know where that takes us.
What are some of the indicators then that a child is struggling with anxiety or even other forms of mental health?
Well, depending on the age of the child, a lot of children don't have the words to say, I'm anxious. Some children don't even know how to say, I'm worried. And so we have to watch what comes out in their behavior, right? For some children, they will develop nervous tics. I saw that a lot throughout the pandemic when children didn't have a physical school that they could go to and play with their friends. Sometimes there's sleep disturbance, either not being able to sleep well through the night. Sometimes there is wetting the bed, challenges with eating, eating too much, not eating enough, irritability. And I find a lot of questions, sometimes asking the same question repeatedly, not being satisfied by the answer that you could potentially give them, right? So really, I think it's important that we pay attention to our kids' behaviors. How is it different? Are things suddenly different than they were 6 months ago, right? And maybe, again, depending on the age of the child, sitting down and having a chat with them, you know, color with them, play with them. Children are so open to exploration, right? Largely because of that creativity. So I think it's really, really important to pay attention to their behavior.
And I know you're really enjoying this, and we're here to equip and empower you. And so welcome back. We're so glad that you're here with us. What a powerful opportunity.
Oh, yeah, we've already learned so much. And I think what I just thinking about our first segment there, like paying attention to what's going on in your children. We can be very busy as parents. And I remember it well. I have 3 kids. I had them in 3 years. 3 years I had 3 kids. Do I need to say anything more? You know, you can just be consumed by other things. And I think what you're bringing to our attention is really a proactive approach to mental health, being aware, and so that we're not just dealing with a crisis, right? So how can, you know, what does it look like to be proactive and not just waiting for the crisis to happen?
Well, it's interesting. Roxanne was talking about kids, like they like to be connected with us. And to your point, like being with them is really, really important. When we think about the things that kind of move us away from our kids, there's busyness, there's, you know, we're preoccupied. There are a lot of important things that we need to do. But what moves us towards our kids quite often is our anxiety. We're worried about them. We're focused on the problems. We're focused on fixing and changing things. So sometimes the best thing that we can do is actually pay attention to what God is doing in our lives and in the lives of his children, our children, so that we can actually engage with them around what God is doing. And that's actually being proactive. So that even when we see things or hear things that are concerning, we don't get moved by our anxiety to fix things quickly. We can actually be in the moment and be like, okay, that's interesting. What do you think God is up to here? You know, and just be with them. That is a simple way, but a powerful way to be proactive.
So good.
Yeah, and Roxanne, you said something really powerful, and it really helped me. You said it's rooted in uncertainty. So are there things that grandparents or parents can do to instill some certainty into an uncertain world?
Yeah, you know, there's so many things in our lives that we can't control, right? And I say, to Andrew's point around being in the moment, helping children recognize what are some of the things that are within our control, right? You know, I often talk to parents about creating routine in the children's lives, right? Especially, on the weekends, or not necessarily filling every moment with an activity, but having some flow to the day, right? This is something that we generally do on a Saturday morning as a family. They know that on a Sunday morning, we'll go to church. On a Sunday afternoon, we'll have brunch, right? These are the things that they know that they can look forward to. When mommy comes home from work, we engage in this activity together. So they know that even though outside of school and outside of the home, the world might be a little bit chaotic, from their perspective, they know that within our home, these are some of the things that we do on these days at these times, and it gives them something that they can anchor themselves to. They know that at bedtime we have prayer, or we read the Bible, and they anchor themselves in that, and it gives them a little bit of certainty in uncertain times.
I love that. That's so true. I mean, our kids are older. We're now grandparents. And I can look back and think, oh, I wish I did all these things different. But I can remember, and I'm sure you can, Bill, those routines
Absolutely.
were critical in actually helping us as parents,
Right.
not just our kids. So you said something, Andrew, about checking, like not letting your own anxiety drive your response.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that a bit more? Because I'm hearing from both of you that it matters what's going on in us.
100%. So let's say we are having a time of devotion, and we are talking about, something that our child is doing that we find concerning. So we could focus on the behavior and shape our devotional time around changing that behavior, right? Because we're concerned that if this behavior continues, if you continue to lie, right, we're gonna have big problems.
And Pastor Bill has a Bible story for that.
Right, right? But if we kind of say, okay, well, God is actually working on the heart of my child to help her know that lying isn't a good thing. What's my opportunity here? My opportunity is, okay, so help me understand. What moved you to say that? I'm not in a rush. I'm not in a rush. You need to stop the lying, right? Because then that's gonna intensify the situation. Right. But if I sit back, because quite often there is an explanation, not an excuse, but an explanation for the behavior. So, well, I said this because I wanted to have this. Well, what would happen if you didn't have that? Well, then I'd feel left out. I see. So feeling left out is difficult. And in that moment, in that routine, you're grounding them, because the worst thing than feeling unpleasant emotions like anxiety and all that stuff is feeling it alone. But as a parent, when you can be like, oh, okay, you're in that moment with them, they're okay, we're okay, they're okay to feel that idea of being left out, but they're not alone. So the next time because that feeling is going to come around again. And if they haven't built a tolerance for it, they're going to try to escape it. But if they can handle it, they'll be like, oh, well, yeah, I do feel left out, but it's okay. I can still make the best and right choice, right?
That is powerful, because I think presence, more than anything else, communicates certainty.
100%.
I will not give up on you.
Exactly.
I will let you express yourself, even if it's inappropriate in this moment. I will be present. I am the one person who will not give up on you, and of course tie that to God. So, yeah, how do parents create that presence, do you think, Roxanne?
Well, to Andrew's point, I think sometimes when children display behaviors that parents find unbecoming, right? They send the child off to them to be by themselves, right? And that suggests, I am not acceptable in this moment, in this behavior. So children hide their anger, or they express it away from home. They start to hide things because they recognize, oh, this behavior, this expression of this behavior is not acceptable. And so if you are able to say to them, actually, I love you, and you can come to me when you are feeling like this, then it gives them a sense of worthiness. It gives them a sense of feeling connected. It gives them a sense of feeling loved in any state, right? And so then children are more able to come to you when they've made a mistake. You are now the first person to come to when they're feeling worried. They're having all of these negative feelings and thoughts. And so having that connectedness, not shaming them, when they've displayed, quote unquote, unbecoming or unsatisfactory behavior. And having those conversations with them, right? It's so key because again, it's about having that aloneness with that trouble is really problematic.
Wow, we are learning so much, and we're going to have a whole week ahead of us.
So good.
With Andrew and Roxanne, and we want you to keep joining us.